Ah, my friend. You're back here again. Look at this. Look at all of this. I'm in a different place than I used to be because I fucking got evicted and I had to move to a different place that costs twice as much. So I'm doing good, I guess. Today we're going to talk about Pagan Ultima VIII again. And specifically, we're going to talk about the use of paratexts to help us understand a work as it ages. Because as the work ages, of course, it becomes harder to understand. We're going to travel to Carthax Lake, which is the place of the sorcerers, and we're going to meet a sorceress named Bane, who is going to help us defeat one of her rivals in extraordinarily gory and violent fashion. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We're also going to have an extended discussion about the aesthetics of environmental design and storytelling in two different traditions. In the tradition that we're working in here, which is like Ultima 8, Dark Souls, those kinds of games. And then the opposite tradition, which might be exemplified by, oh, the Elder Scrolls or something like that. So without further ado, let's get going, shall we? I want to show you a place called Carthax Lake. Carthax Lake is drained, it's empty. You can see there's dead fish bones in the bottom. It's 2 stories down. If I try to jump down there, I'll just fucking die. It's very austere down there, isn't it? This whole cavern is one of the most kind of moody, lonely places. Very desolate. I'm showing it now because we're gonna fill this place with water. I believe that there is a magical being that is captured up at the other part of this place that we're traveling to. And we can probably commune with them, but we need to get them into their like Carthax Lake water pool home here first. Would you like to slay a troll with me? Well, perhaps the fire will kill this troll, but if we would like to kill the troll, the first thing we can do is use intervention to make ourselves immune to damage. And then we have to unequip this shitty, crappy sword we have and equip our friend, the Slayer. So we're gonna be immune to damage for a little bit while our spell is in effect. And then we just kind of bash, right? Down goes the troll. And there's something in here that I wanted to show you. The most conspicuous spot to loot here, after having our epic combat encounter with the troll, would be this backpack. And the backpack is full of things that will kill you if you touch them. Like, if I touched one of those, I'll do it for you in a moment, but it's not going to be great. There's also a little, not very consequential pile of money. Kind of actually a few scattered piles of money. We can take those. So now we have like a little bit more money. Who really cares? Oh, that's our invincibility wearing off. In this other bag, there's like some food. Various interesting bottles. Some kith fillet. So you could be forgiven for thinking that this combat encounter or whatever this bonfire is total bullshit. Let's light one of these and then run like hell. It explodes. So you're liable to get yourself killed playing with this stuff any damn way, right? But if you check the corpses, you'll find that there were like some warriors here who were defeated by the trolls. And this corpse, in particular, has magical arm guards. An extremely rare and like valuable item because it's light, only 1 stone for any magical item in this game, and it protects you a lot. You could easily miss that. It's just like strewn amongst these skeletons. Orange potions restore your mana. There's some non-magic arm guards here too. It's like the kind of thing that tells you, you know, this is a particular era of game, right? A game that wants to reward you for your thoroughness, not by giving you, oh, a double. Not by giving you some achievement like, wow, you found the hidden area, but by deliberately hiding the good item off to one side. This is something that, for example, Baldur's Gate 2 does. You can get these, I think they're like +2 strength gauntlets. They're in this big sphere that moves between dimensions, and they're just in this little chest, one random container in the midst of a larger combat encounter. That's one of the most important items in the whole game, Baldur's Gate 2. But it was very easy to miss, and I think depending on how that quest ended up, you could then lose access to that item forever. The kind of thing that would make a gamer mad, right? Progress denied. But you can't deny that that adds a certain spice to the proceedings. It creates worlds that truly are full of mystery. This room, while mostly full of unremarkable corpses, like every other part of this game, just overflowing with corpses. All the time, corpses. But one of them hides, like, the designers have very little to work with, right? They have a couple special things they can give you. These magic items are amongst the most special things that they can give you, right? I still need to get my magical shield somehow. The contemporary sensibility would be that it's almost a waste of an item system to make the coolest equipment available through such a low user path place, like this one skeleton up here. It just doesn't provide enough experience for enough players. Most players will never even get to this part in the game. They'll quit after the first 10 minutes, right? But if they had gotten here, they would sort of miss that. And so that, in modern design parlance, we might call that an unoptimized funnel. So when we see it in any game, when we see it in a game like Dark Souls, when we see it here, it signifies something. There's an almost eternal question within this design lineage of game. If we're talking about God of War, the most recent incarnation of that franchise, they would never, ever, 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 ever put an important item like this on some random, unremarked container amidst hundreds of others in a cave. Never do that. Dark Souls absolutely fucking would, right? So there's like this divergence, or there's this variation within like the gene pool of the exploring a dank cavern up. Exploring a dankum up? Exploring dankum cavern up. This category of video game. Ultima VIII lands hard on the Dark Souls side. It almost, when it does put an item on a pedestal for you, it puts like a nasty trap right in front of the pedestal. Just to fuck with you. It's like a Sandy Peterson map, like we were talking about before, from its contemporary, the game Doom. It's a game that sort of believes at a philosophical level that, you know, we talk about maturity a lot in video games, and it's a pretty broad and kind of a useless word, right? But whatever. One way in which this game is very mature is that it simply realizes that if all you do is fill your somewhat random looking environment art containers with useless crap, the way Fallout does, right? Mostly that's bottle caps filled with worthless crap that you can sell for mostly useless currency. That's like the open world standard thing to do. I think we can agree about that, right? A mature game like this one realizes that when you take that approach, you're not really putting mysterious containers into your world. You're just putting a cheap facsimile thereof into the world that only ever contains a cheap facsimile of mystery, like a couple of bottle caps. Ultima VIII and a game like Dark Souls both sort of agree and understand that the magical arm guards have to go. Sometimes they have to go into one of these kind of environment adorning skeletons telling some little vignette about this, I don't know, group of warriors that ventured into the troll cave and I guess didn't have access to all the cool wind magic that the Avatar has. People love dissecting the lore of a game like Dark Souls. They're trying to find out what happened, and that's like something that's really important to them. And a situation like this can be read in precisely that context. I mean, for one thing, there's again a huge bonfire. Maybe the trolls actually kept this bonfire going. This one has sort of an excuse to be tended, unlike ones we've seen previously that seem to burn forever. But if this game were as popular as Dark Souls, there'd be a wiki somewhere where these warriors would all have names. Like, this would be like Death Disc Warrior number 4, where you can find these magic arm guards, and, you know, over here is like Mace Warrior. People will talk endlessly about that thing with, the Dark Souls director guy, Miyazaki, and when he was a child, he couldn't, like, he would read partially translated things, or he would only be able to partially translate things, and he would have to fill in the blanks, and so his conception of fantasy was very dreamlike. That story gets retold a lot, right? And that's a great way to kind of look at what abstraction does in a story. But it's also not really, it's not really like a specific, unique thing that guy does that he invented, right? We know that there's nothing new under the sun. The process of omitting details is like a pretty classic. It's almost just, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's any form of reading a historical text or like any type of doing research into anything, you know? A lot of the details are incomplete, and all the stories you get are, of course, only partially accurate. That's the nature of it, of anything. So Pagan, Ultima VIII, and Dark Souls both work in a similar tradition of deliberately omitting a lot. They don't want to rob you of the joy that you'll have in speculating about all of this crap. Because whatever little thing in a storybook, Elder Scrolls style, that they could put in this bag that, you know, told you what happened to, like, Peter the Warrior, with mentioned his magic arm guards, so the player made sure to get the magic arm guards. This design team might actually have put that in if they had time, right? But one way or another, they were sort of forced to omit all of that, and the result is undeniably something that's Souls-like. Something that seems not to be maliciously omitting, but to be sort of telling you a joke. being coy, always knowing more, a little bit more than it lets on, and always holding back a little bit more than it feels like it's really necessary to hold back. We understand why a story will hold back details like, oh, the villain is actually the long-lost father of the protag. Big reveal. Like, we tend to understand why they leave that for halfway through a movie. But when Dark Souls, or media like this one, Pagan, do the thing of just kind of like almost compulsively lying to you, you know? Like, omitting things that don't really have a dramatic reason for you omitting them, that doesn't make... You're not setting up some reveal like, oh, now I know why they wouldn't tell me this before, or why someone was confused. It's just like the characters begin confused, and then in the middle of the story, nothing's been answered, but they're more confused because there's more questions. And then by the end of the story, they're just even more confused because there's just been even more questions. This is like the kind of story that Franz Kafka would write. You know, the trial is like this. Dark Souls is like this. It's sort of laughing at your desire to find out what's happening. Some people find that really uncomfortable, or they call it poor storytelling or bad game design, and other people kind of get the joke and they're like, oh right, it's kind of funny, right? It's kind of funny that we don't ever find out what's up with these fighter people. And from a very mature point of view, it doesn't fucking matter who these people were or what they were fighting for. None of that matters. We just want the magic arm guards, right? Like, Pagan has a point of view towards history. And quite clearly the point of view is like a mountain of skeletons, just bones and bones and bones piled like a mile high. At the center of Carfax Lake, if we jump our stone bridges just right, is this nifty cetacean shrine. Huh?
Indeed, piteous mortal, I am Hydro. Know that it is into my domain that you have trespassed. Why do you disturb my rest? A wise request from one who has made the difficult journey to my current home. But alas, the desire must go unfulfilled. Trapped here as I am, I cannot help you. Ah, you will assist me then. My gratitude will be boundless, more.
Huh?
The task is a simple
Her
one.
gratitude will be
Merely
boundless.
open the ground next to the gravestone of my
There's all sorts of things
beloved.
this
Release
wild
into water
silvery
on
tentacle
his
thing can
side.
do for
Do
us.
that, and I shall be free.
Up here at the shrine of Hydros's beloved, or the grave rather, Alexis here. We gotta call open ground, which I've prepared. So let's do that. Whoa! Ooh. Isn't that nice? So I believe what this is gonna happen now is that we have inadvertently freed the spirit Hydros, who's now going to cause a whole bunch of storms. They're really mad because people have been stealing their lightning powers. Humans have been stealing their lightning powers for a while, and they're really mad. Look at this, like, waterfall. That looks kind of nice. But what happens, of course, is that lake that we were in, the dry one, has become flooded. So for you fans of the dry lake, flooded lake trope in video games, you know, God of War comes to mind. We've been talking about that one recently. But you can see where there was once dry sadness, there's now A proud waterfall. I believe the game makes us navigate.
I really do appreciate your plight, Avatar.
Shut up, Guardian. We need to visit our friend, the god of water. He's probably going to reveal himself to be like not quite our friend, but you know, whatever. We'll just like steal the piece of black rock that sustains them, and we'll use it to get out of this hellhole. Ooh, fish. Alright, let's see what this god has to say.
I am now free. Thank you, foolish one, for your actions. Consider my gift of your wretched life as payment for your part. Now I will have my vengeance upon your pathetic
Not gonna
pride.
make me a tempest.
Slay the descendant of my jailer. Let us see you can reach Devon first, groundling.
Alright, well, you know, I think I can probably reach Devon first. But the game is instructing me to go see Devon because we've entered this, you know, water-related plot now that we're trying to obtain the power of the water titan Hydros. Let's go find out what's up with Devon. Looks like he's in his room. I imagine everybody is spooked about these storms. Let's see what this guy has to say. Ooh, okay, so he's gonna send me to the sorcerers. Just kick that quest along. We've done what we can in the water god region. Ultima here making its, you know, best effort at being a kind of narratively paced video game with different phases. Not really getting there. Not in a way that we would consider very substantial. Not relative to, you know, the greatest successes of our industry. But like, who gives a shit about any of that? There's a lot of really cool stuff on display in this one. As we enter the domain of the sorcerers, having traveled here once again through this map of catacombs. Let me show you what the caves looks like. This is from another paratext that I like to use called Pagan the Beautiful, where they use a similar technique that I would have used in Ultima Online to just kind of map out the entirety of the world. Like the whole map, right? We can see here represented. This right here is the land of the sorcerers. This is Carthax Lake. So that's where I started from because I had a waypoint. What we're looking at here is actually the hub for this game's spokes. This is where all of the game's major areas get connected. This is like the spine of the world, right? That's the upper catacombs. We've spent endless amounts of time in the upper catacombs. Down here is sorcerers. Over here is the air people that we visited. Air god, water god, fire god, earth god, all consolidated into what we can see is like quite a small actual area. Of course, when you're playing this, it tends to feel much more enormous. Like, we were just looking at that map, right? Well, this is the 1-to-1 scale of the game, so once I leave an identifiable landmark, like that door, it's like, okay, look at this, and then look at that map, and tell me where we are, right? It's here, but I'm sure you can see how it would be pretty confusing. The game uses the zoomed-in camera to kind of create this illusion of vastness. It's a lot like Silent Hill's use of distance fog, We just haven't quite gotten to 3D rendering yet. So instead of distance fog, we have a kind of a ludicrously tiny, probably the tiniest gameplay window that any Ultima game has ever shown you. With the possible exception of the early ones with the Bard's Tale, like the first person vector graphics dungeons, I guess those were showing you less. But then you had an overworld, right, that showed you much more. Even in fucking Akalabeth you had that. We've come to the land of the sorcerers, and we can see from this color tint that a storm is happening because we've freed the water god again, Hydros. And the land of the sorcerers is full of lava, and isn't it just like moody as fuck out here? Devin told us to come here because maybe somebody here could fix our problem with the water god flooding the island and killing everybody. I guess the remaining like 7 to 12 named characters, just like happened back in the Zealand times, right? The thing that destroyed the previous precursor society. Oh, well, don't step in lava, because when you step in lava, that is what transpires. So when you come to the domain of the sorcerers here, there's nothing visible, but if you explore the edges of the lava very carefully, dying a lot as you saw me do, this happens. You're quite resourceful to have come to this place. I don't know why he has that voice. Welcome to the mouth of the demon. This cavern used to be the first test for joining the fire people, right? The sorcerer's cabal. We gotta join the fire people now. But somebody has rendered it useless by directing an underground river in this direction. Quite a remarkable thing to do, the sorcerer asks you pointedly. Out of respect for the Asshole's Guide, the Bastard's Guide to Pagan Ultima VIII, thank you, I was the one, is the canonical response, I think, for the Avatar to have. An interesting solution, this guy says. But he says, you know, maybe your next test could be to, like, unfuck our cavern. I'm not sure if the lava is the result of the underground river. Maybe it is. We opened it when we, you know, we caused these storms, we redirected a river, we freed the water god, etc. Should you somehow find a way to fly to the point on which I stand? A very, like, you know, kind of Ren Fair, just like, hey, use your airwalk spell, dude. This is sort of a progress gate, right? And you could look at it the same way we would look at a little grapple hook point in a Metroidvania, you know? He suggests that we seek out the sorcerer known as Bane, who is quite knowledgeable in our ways and might be persuaded to help us, the Avatar. Then he says, farewell! And woo, fireproof! So, the sorcerer people... Oh, but one last thing. They do not take kindly to insults, attitudes, or even posturing. The sorcerer people are like Game of Thrones people. They like to plot and scheme and, you know, stab one another in the back. Let's see if we can use the airwalk spell that we received from the air god. Oh, Guardian. Shut up, dude. Airwalk. And then I guess we just fucking jump. What? Oh, well. It worked. Maybe now we can use Healing Touch to not die. Yeah. The air magic is really good, right? Ah, I'm just trying to climb, dude. Why am I being punished for trying to climb? I guess it's because when you have airwalk on, it's like he's launching himself into the cave wall. That's pretty funny. But is this not the way that I need to go? You know, it doesn't seem like I can climb this. Maybe I don't need to be up here. Oh, down I go. Okay. Well, that's why we have journal entries. Do you know what I mean? Once more into the fray. Into the last good fight I'll ever know. I don't know why I'm quoting that awful Qui-Gon Jinn movie. What's that guy's name? Liam Neeson. The Grey, I think the film was called. Liam Neeson? Liam Neeson's knees, son. I wonder if this is the underground river situation. This kind of looks a bit floody, wouldn't you say? Maybe there's another open ground spell that we can cast somewhere around here. This look is pretty good, wouldn't you say? I mean, they made some great water stuff, and they made some pretty great lava stuff. This is one of the moments in the game where we're seeing those two things quite strongly combined to create this kind of remarkable, like, a remarkably gaudy visual contrast, we must admit. It's like a pretty wild look, but you gotta admit that it is a look. Oh, okay. So this is definitely something that happened as a result of our, you know, being the Avatar and freeing Hydros from their prison, their underground cavern prison. Kind of a beautiful effect, I think. I wonder where we're actually supposed to go. Let's just cross the river and see if we can find... This is kind of fun, right? It's hard to get down without killing oneself. Ooh. Ooh. I think I broke it. Oh! Well, the isometric perspective. It's amazing, right? We have the ability to see through walls, but we don't have the ability to, like, look at things that are facing the north, right? Imagine having that type of visual impairment, like... I can only look at objects that are oriented towards the east or the south. Any other object I'm incapable of viewing. But I can, like, kind of see hidden rooms through walls.
Yes, Avatar, seek a way home.
This is the sorcerer place, whose name I honestly have forgotten. Demon's Crag. How creative. I believe at this point in the game, sort of like in The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings, let's say, the plot sort of branches because you have to choose who your necromancer, or pardon me, your sorcerer master will be. You can choose this man who's fucking sucks, or you can choose Bane, who has already been recommended, I believe is located in one of the closest houses. There they are, yeah. And who also, I would say, you know, something I thought about Bane back when I played this game as a young child was like, Bane's kind of hot. Do you know what I mean? Look at these pixels. It's mostly in the characterization, I suppose. My true name is Damien, Fire of the Sky. She awards me a true name. We haven't yet certified it with a magical ritual, but within this magic system, true names can be, you know, used to control people. It's like kind of like witches and wizardry. Yeah, tell me about the Elder Tongue. Enchanted tools. So with this magic system, you take like an enchantable item like a wand, you put it on a pentagram, you do a lot of complicated things, and then that wand then has some charges, right? I think it might actually be limited time uses, unlike with the air foci. Other acolytes with their unwarranted comments. Lord of the Flame, the most potent of the Titans. That's like a kind of an odd thing. Bound to the will of the sorcerers, long ago, angry Firehorns guy. They put him on the box of the game because the art and animation's actually pretty impressive. We'll get to see it, of course. Yes, of course I'm unlearned in the ways of sorcerers. I just want to get her true name, but she won't tell me. Not yet. We'll get it later. We'll probably use it against her. Tongue of Fire is the Blackrock artifact that we're gonna get, of course. That's a spell that you can cast. The Enclave and more Galen. The volcano is the namesake of the island. Yeah, why is it named after demons? Oh, the first demon appeared here. Yeah, tell me about that. What a story. A guy and his wife were running away from a rape gang, and in order to save his wife, he threw her into lava, at which point a demon appeared, slew the gang, and the guy said, well, don't kill me because my wife dead. And the demon's like, okay. It's a bit like, it reminds me of the Game of Thrones story about the magic fire sword that you have to quench in the breast of your lover or some shit like that. You know, the demon's born of this misfortune. Kinda crappy though. I mean, like, TV Tropes is like going wild with that plot summary. Okay, we're gonna get an explanation of the elements. Bane is so helpful, right? Telling us about air, creation and destruction. That's what fire is about. Cool. Alright, so that's Bane the Sorcerer. Here we can see a bunch of sorcery reagents, like fucking demon bones, iron, pumice, volcanic ash, obsidian. This rod can be enchanted to become a wand, and I think this symbol might also be part of sorceress ritual. I don't know, ritual. Oh, I'm sorry, Bane. I didn't mean to move it. So, look at all this, right? You gotta put, like, red candles on Paravolcan Zay, Mesistel Pa, and the Aphelion. These are just, like, weird names they came up with for different parts of the pentagram, right? So you put red or black candles on certain points of the star. Use reagents at potentially other points in the star. It's actually really fucking complicated. But if you do that, then you can cast, like, Ignite, Inflam, right? That's pretty great. Extinguish and Flam. Armor of Flames. Vast Sanct Flam. I guess the Elder Tongue is probably the same tongue that they use in Britannia to cast magic, like Vast Sanct Flam and that kind of shit. So all of these things are, you know, possible to create using complicated sorceress rituals. Ooh, here's a book by Madron. So it is the magical black rock. Oh, the pentagram symbol can be enchanted to give several uses of ignite. The wand can do ignite and extinguish in quantity, as well as flash and flame to a select. So the wand holds more, the little cushion holds less. And then I guess if you get like the sorcerer's rod, you can do the advanced spells, I guess. Endure heat, fire shield, armor of flames. And also you can just cast a lot more spells. So getting these like materials to cast with, I guess that's like an important thing. Bane is going to destroy her enemy after we gained his trust by just kind of asking him, "Hey dude, what's your true name, man? Let me help you." And he was like, "Okay." So Bane, the hot witch here, sorcerer person, summons this demon, commands this demon to go and end her rival's life. Dismembered.
I do so enjoy the cries of torment.
Guardian. They had that Guardian line. I guess they just queued it up. I wonder if that was probably scripted, right? Verdion was not planning to assassinate anybody. So we have helped Bane seize power from Verdion by murdering him. And in exchange for that murder, she'll train us to be a sorcerer. Run along now, she says. Put that library key on our key ring. This is Vardion's house. You can see that, yeah, things went a little bit bad for him. He would have done the same to Bane. But he was too slow and he's dead now, and that means, you know, we can take his shit, right? Flame Bolt. Maybe it'll be fun to use that on somebody. This book is called On Sorcerous Ways. And this is where it explains to you approximately how you cast sorcery magic in Pagan Ultima VIII. And it's describing the shape of the pentagram. Well, it's labeling each part of the pentagram because you're going to need to put red candles on certain parts and black candles on other parts. And like, you know, iron's gonna have to go on this point, but then like pumice is gonna go on that point. And it says here, the points where the conducia touch the peripheron each have a designation that relates to their distance from the volcano. The pentagram is actually a map of the island. And this fire magic that these folks use, sorcery, is sort of locally derived. Like they've actually labeled their pentagram in a way that corresponds almost to the geography of this little island that they all live on. It turns out they actually kind of live on a sort of pentagram-shaped island, I suppose. And then they come up with some names. The farthest point is called the Aphelion. The middle two are the Mestostele. Mesestel Pa is to the right, while Mesestel Zay is to the left. And then the final points closest to the volcano, which I believe the volcano is actually at the top, not the middle. I think? I'm not positive about that. But those ones are named Perivolcanae. Paravulcan Pa is on the right, and Paravulcan Zay is on the left. So this is the key, the cipher that you need to then go and read, like, Explosion spellbook, right? Because Explosion here, it's got red candles on Paravulcan Pa and Mesistel Zay, and also on the Aphelion. And there's reagents that go on these different things, too. I looked up some maps for this here in the browser. Ugh. When you click on an image search result and it doesn't give you the image, don't you hate that? Here's one diagram that somebody has made, basically showing you where to put the candles. That's one way to look at it. How do you solve this game? So all of this bluster and all of this kind of interesting encryption, they don't just say ash, lower left, iron, bottom. They totally could have said that, but they put this little cipher on it. The ash goes at Mesistel Zay, and the iron goes at Mesistel Pa, and shit like that, you know. Trying to create a bit of mood or a bit of feel. I think they probably intended for me, the player, to make a drawing, you know, of a pentagram and make my own little diagram labeling all of the parts. And the game probably wanted for me to have that experience. That was why it chose to create the encryption, was so that we could have fun kind of diagramming the key, right? I chose in this playthrough, as I think in all my previous playthroughs, not to make my own diagram, but to just use internet paratexts, walkthroughs, shit like that. My brother and I would play this game when we were young. It was one of our first DOS games. Dad got it to work, you know, we had to reboot the damn Windows 95 computer into DOS mode. It was a disastrous sort of process. Very traumatic process, one of our first brushes with hard computer things. But my brother would sort of collect, like a hoarder, these GameFAQs walkthroughs, right? Print them out, put them in binders. That was kind of interesting. And so I remember particular Ultima VIII ones that we had that became almost like... holy text is like too strong a word, right? But there was a curated canon of video game paratexts, you know, walkthroughs, that he had kind of a personal relationship with, and I had kind of a personal relationship with, I suppose you could say. That's kind of a cool thing, right? So it isn't that I lost out necessarily by not getting to do the diagram myself. I think that's like a naive view of the situation. It's more like I was invited to step into this game in a different way by looking up cool walkthroughs online that had made these diagrams, maybe as like an ASCII diagram, an ASCII art diagram in a GameFAQs, a .txt guide, you know, because back then you didn't have enough bandwidth to have anything more fancy than a .txt guide. Today, I'm not sure whether it is really possible to have the same experience that you would have back then making the diagram yourself, because, like, I think that part of asking somebody to make a map of a dungeon in a game, asking somebody to sort of generate some of their own paratext to do with that game, it has a certain association to, like, I don't know, the world of technology, like the world of the new or something like that. Because as texts that people have written about a thing accumulate, then it no longer feels as pressing to be making your own versions of that. Like, things, they recede into the past. They become, once something is not the new hotness anymore, People don't want to like clamor to be the ones making the game guide for it or whatever. Do you know what I mean? That's like a cutting edge thing. It's on the cutting edge where you really tend to have those, I don't know, explorer-like experiences. People wanting to like map territory as if it were like original territory. But after something is not, it's kind of left the commercially profitable realm. It's out in the world of like buried cultural artifacts with, you know, this giant mountain of amazing video games that nobody's really going to play or think about again. Once it gets out into that world, it's a little bit hard to just get somebody psyched to make a map of this cave that they're in, or make a diagram of, you know, this shit, the peripheron and all of this stuff. It's like a bit of an ask. Some people are always really into that and they just like doing it, and hey, more power to them, right? But I think a lot of people should just consider, and I've said this a million times, consider just using a fucking paratext. Just look up a guide. It's still fun to play these games just using a guide. It's like we're just using a cipher to decipher to the basic instructions. Put red candle here. We're using a more efficient one because we don't really want to spend the hours immersed here in Pagan. This doesn't feel to us like the kind of shining hyper reality that it might have felt like back in 1994 or whatever it was. This can't help but feel old and dusty, right? Because it's fucking old and dusty. And it's somewhat rare to find somebody who's going to be content and happy, you know, discovering an old and dusty thing with no outside reference as if for the first time in some attempt to, I don't know, preserve their authentic response or have the intended experience. Some people really do that, but for the most part, it's like you don't go and approach an old Karl Marx text by like reading it. It's not like, oh, we have to avoid spoilers, so we're just gonna like read it sight unseen to get the absolute most, I don't know, the purest possible experience of the story, right? So when we think about a Karl Marx text, and not one of the famous ones, let's say one of his like letters, some fucking letter that he wrote one time, right? You're trying to get some student to read this thing. We wouldn't look at it and say, well, listen, don't tell me what he wrote in the letter. No spoilers. I want to experience this letter for myself, you know? This letter that fucking Karl Marx wrote to whom, I don't know, the Duke of whoever the fuck, right? Who cares? One of these like pieces of some tweet from 200 years ago that a famous guy wrote. We would never use the rhetoric of spoilers for that because we know that, because it's like the letter Karl Marx wrote is not being pushed. It's not on the bleeding edge. It's not like pushing itself into our reality in this kind of intrusive way like Marvel The Avengers does, where it's like it's coming at us and we don't want it to be spoiled. It's like we don't want it to be occluded by anyone else's idea about it. We want to like hit it full on. We want to like gulp that shit down. You know, like Marvel's next movie is slowly coming at us like a freight train, and we're just standing, lashing ourselves to the track or something like that because we want the full spoiler-free. We don't want a cowcatcher on that train. We want to be crushed beneath the wheels of an unspoiled Marvel adventure. Something like that, right? That only happens because of the aggressive marketing, this sense that it's very new and happening and in the future almost. It's like when you're seeing one of those movies, it's a bit like you're seeing the future in like whatever graphics or Hollywood or, you know, pick your thing. But it feels it has this feeling and taste, this umami of the new, that makes it so that you don't want things in front of it. So there's an event horizon as a movie transitions from being in the kind of gleaming future present. Don't spoil me on this. I want to plug it directly into my brain. I want it to splatter me. There's an event horizon where something eventually moves out of that. People just aren't interested in it in the same way anymore. And it goes through some weird funnel of compression, coming out the other end as... Well, that's why it's an event horizon. It could come out in a lot of ways. It could be a sort of cult classic, beloved thing. It could also just be something that people mostly don't care that much about. One of the weaker ones, one of the forgettable sort of ones, or something like that, right? Or it could come out as being a pretty untranslatable... I mean, sometimes things can't be properly understood while they're in their release context, while they're being pushed. People try to plug it in directly. They're like, I hate this. Ultima VIII is like an example of that, right? Hopefully, somebody like me can develop a nice lens for you that allows you to kind of see through it and appreciate some of the things about this that are cool. So that's why I say, like, you know, when you're looking at games that are in the past, why not always use a paratext? Why not just let go of this sort of responsibility to have an unspoiled experience? Maybe that doesn't matter, right? Maybe it's more important to find some kind of paratext that you connect with that gives you a perspective towards the game you're playing that you like. You just like the way it's written, you know? You like the perspective of the person writing the game facts guide. You just kind of like the way the sentences feel to you, or something like that. Because that person is going to give you like this way to slide into it and have just like a more kind of